It was inside this pile of sacred texts where I found an old Adventure Time Creepypasta that I wrote when I was about 15 years old. Yep, you heard me right. 10 fucking years ago. Anyways, as the age would imply, a 15-year-old doesn't exactly have the best writing skills in the world, especially not me. So, you can probably assume what a creepypasta written by an edgy teenager would turn out. And the answer is... It was a cold winter evening. Oh, we're off to a great start already. My parents were out of town, and my big sister was at her friend's house. I was home alone, free to do whatever I wanted. I was lying on my bed. I was wrapped up in 3 blankets, but I was freezing. I was listening to some Adventure Time songs, since it is my favorite TV show. I had a notification set to go off at 4:30 because a new Adventure Time episode was at 10 past 4. What? My tablet got a notification. I thought you were using your phone, you dumbass. Saying that a new episode was out. I jumped up and ran to my TV. On the way, I grabbed a few snacks and dived onto the couch and turned on the TV. Cartoon Network was on, and the commentator said, "Up next is a special Adventure Time episode." I was confused as I don't recall the new episode being a special, but it was the usual 10-minute runtime. I just decided to relax and open a bag of crisps. The screen went black for about 5 seconds. I had no idea what was going on. Suddenly, there was static, and then the usual intro came on, only the colors were more dark and depressing. The placement of the characters were changed, and the theme song was slightly slowed down and distorted. I assumed it was like this for a special episode. Suddenly, a picture came up for about 2 seconds, showing dead candy people. Their blood was on the walls, and their guts were wrapped around 2 candy cane trees. I felt a churn in my stomach. I was very confused now. The intro continued, but it slowed down. But it showed the Candy Kingdom. Nobody was there, and it was completely empty. It froze for about a second at the wall. It froze for about a second at the wall of the castle, and on it was Finn, written in what seemed to be blood. Then it slowly moved through the caverns, but Marceline was gone. I felt very creeped out at this stage. When it zoomed into Finn and Jake's window of their treehouse, there was nobody there, and the sound of what I think was an old man saying, "He's here." Then the screen went black. I sat there, trying to process what I saw, when red text popped up on the screen saying, "Finn." It lasted about 5 seconds, then it faded to the next scene. Jake was standing at the oven, making something. The floors and the walls were a dark grey colour, and the only bright colour was Jake. But his shade of yellow was a lot darker than usual. He started humming what sounded like a lullaby to himself. It was a creepy one too. It froze on the back of Jake's head for about 8 seconds, until suddenly he shouted, "Finn! Finn! Finn!" I jumped at how loud and distorted the sound was. I was really confused, as my volume was only on 10, and that sounded like it was on 90. The scene then changed to Finn's bed, but all that was there was Finn's pajamas, covered in a black liquid. Everything was still. For one frame, a picture of Finn popped up, but in this picture, his hat was torn, his eyes were gone, and his face was covered in blood. The level of detail was extreme, like one of those scenes from SpongeBob, where a chill went down my spine. It was frozen on Finn's, I think, bloody pajamas, and the sound of footsteps gradually got louder. Suddenly, Bimo came up the ladder. Her frame, I thought Bimo was a boy, was sad looking. Her color was a dark green, and all of her buttons were red. She sighed deeply and said in a creepy, sad tone, "Finn, dinner's ready." She climbed back down the ladder, and the next scene showed Jake. His color was even darker now. He was slowly walking to the table. He seemed to be shaking, but I don't know why. He sat down at the table, and I froze at the sight. His eyes looked like they were gouged out. It was as graphic as Finn's face a few seconds earlier. The scene froze at his face for about 5 seconds, until it showed Bimo climbing onto the chair across from Jake. Jake just sat there, staring at nothing. Suddenly, Bimo started sobbing. I was very scared at this stage. The scene stayed at Bimo's crying face for 10 seconds. It then changed to Jake, who was smiling creepily. It then slowly looked down at Jake's plate. All that was there was a message written in blood saying, "Finn." I had no idea about what was going on at this stage, when suddenly a door knocked on the TV. Jake went downstairs and opened the front door, and stood there was the Ice King. His beard had drops of blood, and his eyes too were gouged out. His nose looked as if it was broken, and he was sobbing. All that came out of the holes where his eyes should be was a weird black liquid. He opened his mouth and said the words, "It's all dead." Jake stared at the Ice King as he walked in. I was at the point of turning off the TV, but my curiosity would not let me. The screen went black again for about 10 seconds. I thought it was over, but it suddenly faded to the Candy Kingdom. What I saw next was the most disturbing thing I have ever witnessed in my entire life. At the castle door lay at least 15 dead candy people, all with their eyes gouged out. Their necks were snapped, and their stomachs were cut open. Their guts were lying around the place. I almost got sick at the sight. The scene faded into Princess Bubblegum's room, but she was hanging from a rope. Her eyes were gouged out too, and her mouth was ripped open, her jaw dangling from a piece of skin. Her stomach was cut open, and her internal organs were hanging out, falling to the floor. Water break. Oh shit. At this point, I felt nauseous. I threw up all over the couch. I grabbed the remote and pressed the power button, but it was not working. The batteries were drained. I jumped off the vomit-covered couch and went to press the power button on the TV. A muffled voice said, "No!" I slowly looked up at the TV and saw Finn staring into my eyes, but he had no eyes. The image was just as graphic as the one earlier, and I almost fainted. The scene faded to the treehouse again, only it was a lot darker. It zoomed into the window, revealing Jake staring outside. His mouth was stitched up. Behind him was the Ice King, hanging from his large intestine. It froze on his face until a picture of Finn popped up, only it showed him gouging out his eyes with a knife. I was shocked at the sight. It zoomed into Jake, whose neck was now snapped, and his guts were on the floor. There was a knife inside his stomach, and his ears were torn off. It then faded to Bimo, who was completely dismantled and covered in blood. Another image popped up, showing Finn brutally killing Princess Bubblegum with a hacksaw. Then another one popped up of Finn killing the Ice King with a knife. Then Bimo, and then Jake. But this image showed Jake strangling him with cheese wire. Blood was spraying out of his neck, and Finn was biting off Finn's ears, ripping out his eyes with his bare hands. The screen then faded to black, and 3 seconds later, an image of Finn holding up a knife to his throat popped up, along with an image of him with a knife to his neck. Then it zoomed into his voice. A muffled, deep voice said, "It's all dead." The screen went to black, with random static appearing, eventually making out the name Finn. The TV turned off, and my phone got a notification saying, "New Adventure Time episode at 3:30. If the episode is out now, what did I just watch? I opened up the internet and typed in Adventure Time episode Finn. I spent at least 20 minutes searching, but I could not find anything. Suddenly, I got a notification which read, "It's all dead." The end. So there you have it. I'm a little bit embarrassed putting this on the internet considering the whole thing was so try-hard and edgy. But you know, that's what I find funny about it. It's always important to be able to look back at your past and, you know, laugh at your blunders and the silly projects that had no hope of going anywhere or winning anyone over. And I can say with the utmost confidence that I have improved tremendously as a writer and storyteller since then. Obviously, I'm not going to write the next bestseller or the next Shakespearean masterpiece, and I'm sure as hell not going to write another creepypasta anytime soon, but at least I have a better understanding now of what's funny, what's dark, what's shocking and unpredictable, and most importantly, what people actually want to hear in a story. At least I hope so. For all I know, I'll be making another video on this one in another 10 years time. And if that's the case, then I hope to see you then. Thank you for watching.